Okay, so are you ready for this?
Ready for what?
To dive into one of history's biggest mysteries, Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah, Bigfoot. You mean Sasquatch or
Yeah, well,
Yeti?
it's all the same, right?
Pretty much.
The creature, whatever you call it, has captivated imaginations for centuries.
It really is remarkable how these stories they pop up all over the world.
Right.
From the Himalayas to the American Northwest, people have been spotting these large, hairy creatures lurking in the shadows for as long as we've been telling stories.
And that's what we're diving into today on this deep dive, a YouTube documentary that claims to unravel the truth behind Bigfoot.
We'll be looking at everything eyewitness accounts, supposed government cover-ups, even the very real possibility of Bigfoot DNA.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. When you think about it, it's pretty astounding how many people claim to have encountered Bigfoot. Thousands of sightings,
There's a lot.
spanning decades, even centuries. Have you ever had a moment like that out in the wilderness where you thought you saw something off, something you couldn't quite explain?
It's easy to dismiss these stories, I think, as misidentification or tall tales, but there are some details that are harder to just brush aside.
Oh, totally. Like what?
Take, for example, the famous footprints discovered by Eric Shipton
Oh, yeah.
on Mount Everest in 1951.
Mount Everest. Wow.
This wasn't just some random hiker. This was a respected explorer
Right.
who stumbled upon these massive, human-like tracks in the snow.
And that's kind of what sparked the modern obsession with Bigfoot, right?
Yeah, I think so. It really captured people's imagination.
It really did. And speaking of those footprints, the documentary goes into quite a bit of detail about gait analysis.
Oh, yeah, gait analysis.
What is that exactly?
So it basically tries to understand how a creature moves by analyzing its footprints.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of like a detective looking at shoe prints to identify a suspect.
Oh,
And what they've found with some of these alleged Bigfoot prints is actually pretty compelling. They don't match the walking patterns of any known primates.
so we're talking about a potential stride that's totally unique,
Potentially. Yeah, it's definitely different from anything we've seen before.
which makes you wonder what other secrets this creature might be hiding.
Exactly.
Okay, so things get a little bit weird
How so?
because the documentary brings up the possibility of government cover-ups.
Oh, no way. Really?
Yeah, they point to the 1974 Washington Environmental Atlas, which, believe it or not, actually lists Sasquatch as a native species.
Wait, are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
A native species. That's amazing.
How does something like that even happen? It's like, how is it possible that a government document would recognize a creature that most of the scientific community considers fictional?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's almost like some officials maybe were more open to the possibility of Bigfoot than we realize.
Or maybe it's just a way to appease local communities
Yeah, that too.
who have these strong Bigfoot traditions.
Right. It's definitely a head scratcher.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it gets even weirder.
Mm-hmm.
The documentary talks about this supposed incident with a U.S. airman who claimed to have obtained a blood sample from a Bigfoot.
Wait, a blood sample? What?
Yeah, a blood sample.
What happened to it?
Well, he claims it was confiscated by these mysterious figures. It's like right out of the X-Files.
Oh, wow. That's quite the story.
It is right.
Although without any evidence, it's tough to know what to make of it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, government interest in these sorts of things isn't always about a cover-up.
That's true.
Sometimes it's about preventing widespread panic or maybe protecting a valuable and vulnerable species.
Right. That's a good point. It's worth considering all angles here. But what about the rumors of Bigfoot DNA being studied in secret government labs?
I've heard about that. It's all very hush-hush.
Right. The documentary claims that some of these samples have shown DNA that doesn't match any known species.
See, now that's intriguing.
Right. And it's not just random people saying this. The documentary mentions Oxford University.
Wow. Their massive DNA project, which is trying to catalog the genomes of every single living thing on Earth.
That's a huge project.
Imagine if they stumble across a DNA sequence that points to Bigfoot.
That would be groundbreaking.
Wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Although, if it were that easy, you'd think we'd have heard something by now.
Well, you'd think so, but identifying and authenticating a discovery like that would be a very meticulous process.
I'm sure.
The scientific community wouldn't just jump to conclusions without mountains of evidence.
Of course not. But what about this? Have you heard about this? It's a
What's that?
Gigantopithecus.
Gigantopithecus.
Oh, yeah? Some researchers believe that Bigfoot could be related to that.
It's definitely a possibility. Gigantopithecus was a real-life giant ape that lived millions of years ago. It's extinct now, but some believe it could be a distant ancestor of Bigfoot.
So imagine a creature that large just roaming the Earth.
It would be something else, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing and terrifying at the same time, almost as terrifying as maybe
As what?
aliens.
Ah, yes. The age-old question. Are Bigfoot and UFOs somehow connected?
So we're saying Bigfoot is maybe some kind of descendant of a giant ape and hangs out with aliens sometimes.
Well, it's a popular theory, I guess. You know, this whole idea that Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings kind of go together. The documentary even mentions this thing called the Blue Planet Project.
Ooh, remind me what that is again?
It's supposed to be this leaked document, describes a race of extraterrestrials called Dig, and guess what? They look a lot like Bigfoot.
Hold on. So there's a whole planet of Bigfoot aliens out there. Is that what we're saying? What are they doing here?
Yeah. Well, we have to be careful, you know? Just because two weird things happen around the same time doesn't mean they're related.
I guess. But it's fun to think about, right?
Of course. But we do have to stay somewhat grounded.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And on that note about staying grounded, we do have to remember that not every Bigfoot sighting is real, right?
Yeah.
The documentary talks about that sad case from 2012,
Yeah.
the guy in the ghillie suit who got hit by a car. It's a good reminder that hoaxes can have serious consequences.
Yeah, it really hurts the people who are out there trying to do real research.
Exactly. And speaking of real research, at the end of the day, if we're going to prove that Bigfoot's real, we need some real evidence.
Yeah.
The documentary talks about how finding a body is like the holy grail of Bigfoot research.
Of course, it would be huge.
Yep.
The ultimate proof right there. Something that scientists could actually study.
Can you imagine the headlines Bigfoot found after all these years? It'd be massive.
Totally. But it makes you wonder, will we ever actually find that proof? Or will Bigfoot just always be this mystery?
It's so interesting, isn't it? We've talked about eyewitness accounts and government conspiracies and even aliens, and still it all comes back to that one question. Is Bigfoot real?
I think that's what makes this topic so fascinating. There are just so many possibilities.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but we're missing half the pieces.
Exactly. And maybe those missing pieces are what make it so intriguing.
I like that. What do you think is so captivating about this whole Bigfoot thing? Why are we still talking about it after all this time?
You know, I think it's because Bigfoot represents something unknown. It's a symbol of the wild parts of our world that we haven't explored yet. You know, in a world that's increasingly knowable and predictable, Bigfoot reminds us that there are still mysteries out there.
It's like we need a little mystery in our lives.
Exactly. And whether or not Bigfoot is actually real, the search itself is kind of exciting.
Yeah, I can see that. So maybe instead of just asking, is Bigfoot real, we should be asking, what can we learn from searching for Bigfoot?
Now, there's a question worth thinking about.
That's a good one. You know, it's weird. Even after all that we've talked about, I still feel like this whole Bigfoot thing, it's almost like it taps into something deeper, you know?
Oh, totally. It's like this romantic idea, like a longing for a simpler time, when mythical creatures roam the earth.
Right? It's like a little piece of childhood we never let go of.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of why we keep searching, even when there's not a ton of evidence. It's the thrill of the unknown, you know?
Yeah.
What if we actually found something truly amazing?
Can you imagine, like, if we discovered a whole new species of primate, like right here on Earth? It would turn everything we thought we knew upside down.
It would be huge, like rewriting the textbooks. And it makes you wonder if Bigfoot is out there. What does that say about us? About how much we really know about the world?
That's a good question. It would definitely be humbling, like a reminder that we haven't figured everything out. There's still so much out there that we don't know.
It's almost a little exciting when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like this reminder to stay curious, to never stop exploring.
And I think that's a good lesson to take away from all this. Whether or not Bigfoot is real, the search itself can teach us a lot about ourselves.
Exactly. It's about the journey as much as the destination. And who knows? Maybe one day we will have our answer to the Bigfoot question.
Until then, it'll keep us guessing and keep those imaginations running wild.
That it will.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Bigfoot. We hope you enjoyed it. What do you think about all this evidence we've talked about? If you had any weird encounters of your own, we want to hear it all. Share your stories and your theories on our social media. And until next time, happy exploring.